Hey YouTube, today I am bringing you another Max Rarity deck profile, including some of the cards that I just got in my mail day yesterday. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't know if this deck is the best, but it's definitely where I want to take my deck building in the future. I really enjoy the play style of this deck, and there's a few cards in here that I've wanted to use for a very long time, but I think they're kind of hard to use. So this deck definitely has some, I guess, conflicting issues, but we'll go ahead and see when I start to get into it. So I'll start off right away. It's kind of a return deck, but not really. I play one return from Different Dimension. The reason I play this, and you'll see like Chaos Monsters and stuff, I only run one. I don't run Dimension Fusion, but the way you play for return is that you play towards it the whole game. I think of it in a similar fashion to Dragon Ruler format, where you had one copy available of return, that you never rely on it as a win condition, but it is a single win condition all by itself. So I don't like running multiple copies because I don't want it to be my primary win condition, but an alternative win condition if it comes down to it. So I do run the one copy, and I like this over Dimension Fusion because the downfall is Dimension Fusion. You can't always pay for it, and you'll see, like, I run triple Solemns. So Dimension Fusion I don't like as much. You can't always pay for it, and it brings back the opponent's monsters. This is important because I can OTK, obviously, with some of my bigger monsters. Remove like a Chaos Monster for another Chaos Monster, for example. I can use monsters I bring back as tribute fodder, which is huge. And I don't know, I guess the surprise factor of it. I do run this over Call the Haunted. I think the monsters that I would like to bring back are more liable to be removed from play as opposed to be sitting in the graveyard with Call the Haunted. So that's why that's why I run this at one copy. And then the rest of my trap lineup, I think Goat format has evolved quite a bit from what it originally started, and the standard trap lineup was 2 Sakus, 2 Dust Tornado, followed by Call the Haunted, Torrent, Mirror Force, and Ring Destruction. I think today's meta, which is much more aggressive, that's still a fine trap lineup, but especially with the prevalence of Solemn Judgment, you need Solemns to fight Solemns. That's the mindset that I like to take. So I think this is a very standard trap lineup that in most decks, you should be running something very similar to this trap lineup, if not this exact trap lineup. Everything else past these, was this 8 traps, is just kind of player preference. To include like Torrential Tribute, Call the Haunted, based on like what you're running in your deck. But I have 3 Solemns, 3 Sakus, 1 Ring of Destruction, and 1 Mirror Force. I think every card kind of speaks for itself. That's why I'm playing it. I think a better answer, or a better question would be, why don't you play things like Call the Haunted, or Torrential Tribute, or Compulse, or anything like that. And Compulse is... I'll start with Compulse. It's an okay card. Definitely good for what it does, but I like it more in decks that have more set monsters. So I can chain it to something like Nobleman of Crossout or whatever it might be to save my monster. I don't really have anything that I want to save, I guess, from something like Nobleman. I have a few cards, but there's nothing this trap lineup does that Compulse would add to it. The reason I don't run Torrent is just, it's my playstyle. As I play Goat more, I don't really enjoy the sitting back and waiting, I guess, of Torrential Tribute. And you kind of have to be in a losing position for it to be more effective. So I don't really play it as much. And then Call the Haunted and Premature Burial, I'm just kind of, I don't really run decks, not to say that they're bad by any means, but I don't really run decks anymore that I always want to bring stuff back. Most of my decks, they don't usually have Air Knight, they don't have Tribe or anything like that. So I really don't have a whole lot of valid targets outside of a live BLS or Chaos Sorcerer that I'd ever can reliably bring back from the graveyard, I guess. But going on to spells, I run pretty standard lineup for the most part. I don't think anything should catch anyone off guard here. I know I just said I don't run Premature Burial, but a whole lot, but I do run Premature Burial on this deck. So those are all the 1-ofs. Then everything else, I just run 2-ofs. So we have 2 Book of Moon, 2 Noblemen, 1, 2 Meta, and 2 Scapegoat. So nothing crazy there. I will say that once I get there, but Metamorphosis, Premature Burial, and Snatch Steal. Snatch is another card that I kind of forego sometimes, but they all act as fantastic tribute fodder. So if you're running stuff like Monarchs, for example, Metamorphosis is an amazing tribute fodder. Now going into the monsters, I run one Bazoo. The reason I run Bazoo is it's just a card that I've really come to like and enjoy. I love the fact that it removes stuff from play, making cards like Return, for example, extremely live. And then 2500 just gets over, outside of BLS, it gets over every single commonly ran card in the format that I can possibly think of. Yeah, it gets over pretty much everything. To include all the normally summoned fusions, nothing is safe from 2500. So incredible card. Normally I'd run 2 Chaos Sorcerers. I am only running 1 Chaos Sorcerer. I dropped one of them for this, and that's mostly because I kind of have a lack of light monsters in this deck. But that's fine. I think 4 light monsters, one of them being searchable, is more than enough to support 1 Chaos Sorcerer and 1 BLS. Well, I guess Chaos Sorcerer has 5 to include the BLS, but those 4 are enough to support the BLS. And then Bazoo is there just to act as a pseudo Chaos Sorcerer because I don't think I run enough lights to be able to justify running more than 1 Chaos Sorcerer. So Bazoo's great. And then the one-ofs, Serpent, Sangan, Breaker, 1 Blade Knight, and 1 Zaborg. So Blade Knight was originally 2 Zaborgs. I kind of dropped it down because I don't... How do I put this? I don't like running high-level monsters. So the reason I'm only running these 2, and this is why I don't run Thunder Dragon, is because I'm running these instead. I opted not to run Thunder Dragon. I think when you run Thunder Dragon, you kind of, to max out its effectiveness, have to run things like Card Destruction or Yeki Break, things like that. Anything that can help make the hand an additional resource. Again, not that that's bad, but just with Thunder Dragon alone, I don't find that very optimal. I think that if I'm going to run things that include Card Destruction, like Yeki Break, Phoenix Wing Blast, or Lightning Vortex, whatever, like you name it, that it should include like Night Assailant and a whole, like a slew of discard package cards. And that's not the way I wanted to take this deck. So I opted for Zaborg, and I chose Zaborg over Air Knight because, more just for testing reasons, I think Zaborg being able to hit face downs, along with being able to hit other Chaos monsters, and those really strong level 4 monsters that are popping up a lot in that 2400, at some points it's definitely more valuable than having an Air Knight. And it's obviously better against Thousand Eyes Restrict and things like that. However, long game, Air Knight is better. Short game, I would prefer Zaborg. And I have noticed a lot that things like Widespread Ruin or Sakuretsu Armor are popping up a lot, in which case Zaborg is much, much better. And some people would say, oh, well, in that case, you should be running Mobius, which, again, not a bad choice. However, I find whenever you summon Mobius, it's often hit by things like Book of Moon or Bottomless Trap Hole or Torrential. Not that it's bad that baits those out, but Zaborg can bait out those same cards while still ensuring that you're getting rid of the opponent's monster. So I think there's a lot of utility behind Zaborg, but people will just kind of theory write it off as it's not as good. But that would take a lot more testing, and enough that I certainly haven't done. I will say that my time on Dueling Book, Zaborg has not disappointed up to this point. So there's those, and then I'm running 1 BLS, 1 Chaos Sorcerer, and 1 Dark Magician to Chaos. Dark Magician Chaos is another card that I think is underutilized. A lot of cards are underutilized. It's definitely more difficult to summon, but like I said, with Premature Burial, Snatch Steal, and Metamorphosis, it's much easier to support. Return also is able to support it. 1 return basically ensures that you're able to normal summon this and get back any of those spells. Being able to get back any spell can kind of win you the game. That's why people really like Magician of Faith, for example. It can just kind of win you a game by itself. DMOC is something that I'm still testing out a lot. I wanted to play it more, but it's really mostly effective, obviously, in Reasoning Gate type decks, but I don't care for those type of decks, so I just want to try DMOC out in a more typical deck, such as like this, for example. So I went more into trying to play cards that can support being able to normal summon DMOC, as opposed to being forced to go like Reasoning, Monster Gate, Dimension Fusion to bring it back. And I will say most games I've had DMOC in hand, it's pretty live, actually. It's very live. There's been very few times where I haven't been able to summon a DMOC. The biggest problem I've had is having spells in the graveyard. Most times I am able to support summoning DMOC, but so early in the game that I really don't have a very good spell target engraved. So it kind of sits in my hand longer than I would enjoy sitting in my hand. I'm running, my final 2 light monsters are going to be 2 Faith. And the reason I'm only running 2 instead of 3 Faith is because obviously 1 Nobleman kind of gets rid of all your targets. So instead of a 3rd Faith, I'm playing Apprentice Magician. And this is something that I tried before. I tried 3 Faiths, 1 Apprentice. Again, pretty similar effectiveness. This, I knocked the numbers down to make room for some other cards, or for something else, for example. And this is something I really got from looking at past Shonen Jump champion decks on GoatFormat.com. If you look at, I think it's Shonen Jump Seattle. I think so, Shonen Jump Seattle. There's a lot of decks that play this ratio. And if they had that much success back then, there's no reason I can't have that much success now. Everyone loves Magician of Faith, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to play an instant searcher for Magician of Faith. And this really opens up to a playstyle that if you want to drop some other cards or make some room, there's no reason that you can't add a Triple Faith or add a Old Vindictive Magician or anything to that example. Or an easy way to like just easily toss in Sacred Phoenix and, was it Hand of Nephthys? So there's a lot that you can play around with, but for 1 Apprentice Magician and 2 Faith, it's going pretty well. This also being able to add a counter to Breaker is something that could just randomly pop up. And just being, in general, a Nobleman cross-out target. If I just set this, it gets Nobleman, well great, that should save my Faiths. So, this I have been playing to pretty good success. No complaints about that one yet. Being able to search out Faith is always a good card. Double Tsukiyomi. So double Tsuk might be a little heavy, to be honest, as I'm only running Faith, and I guess I'll show it now, but to support my normal summoning with DMOC, I'm running Triple Spy. So, oh, this is going to bother me. So we'll put Triple Spy there, and then double Faith, or double Tsukiyomi. Faith was Tsukiyomi target. So I only have 3 Spy, and then the 2 Faith as targets. So it might seem a little heavy on Tsukiyomi, but I think that's okay because to include Thousand Eyes Restrict, Snatch Steal, and Nobleman, Tsukiyomi is, I think, kind of supports itself. I do like the total of 4, so if I didn't run 2 Tsukiyomi, I'd probably play Triple Book of Moon and 1 Tsukiyomi, but that number is shiftable for me. Triple Spy is something that I know I definitely want to run, and I think you have to run if you're going to run DMOC. That's mandatory. If you're running anything 2 Tributes, I think Triple Spy is mandatory. I was originally running Triple Spy 1 Guard because Guard, it really just kind of seals games, to be honest. I've had a few times when I was testing that on Dueling Network, or Dueling Book rather, where I just have Guard and Tsukiyomi set Guard their turn, they set a monster, my turn, flip Guard, attack, summon Tsuk, set it back down, and they just scoop because it's very difficult to beat that combo when you have like 3 or less cards total. So Guard can kind of, it doesn't win games, but it can definitely, it can seal the game. 100% it can seal games. So that was really good, but I kind of leaned away from that because I did want to lean more towards having a, I think the Guard kind of took away from, how do I put this? It took away from the cohesion of the deck and kind of became its own thing. That's the best way I could possibly put it. I ended up dropping the Guard actually for the Apprentice Magician to be able to search out the Faiths. It does the same thing. It still keeps that monster count on field, so I'll always have that monster, but it makes lights more accessible. And I think I was okay making that switch. Triple Spy, a lot of people say 2 Spy, but Triple Spy, I want to be as consistent as possible when I'm running DMOC. It's easy to fill up the graveyard. If they use Nobleman and get banished, then it hurts, but I still run that return. So I can still flip return and get back Triple Spy, and that's still good. Spy is also a goat killer. It's a poor man's Azura Priest, I guess. Just being able to go through every single goat within 1 to 2 turns when you have Spy, maybe another monster on the field, whatever it might be. So that's pretty awesome, but not much to say there. It's also a phenomenal card against this warrior deck that is popping up everywhere, and for some reason I don't see more people taking in at least 2 copies of Spies, which is blowing my mind, but yeah, whatever. So that is my max rarity chaos deck that I've been working on. It's something I'm going to keep playing with, maybe make a few changes. I know I want to keep Dark Magician at Chaos, and I want to keep working Bazoo and with Apprentice Magician and Spy, but I think the only thing that might change is maybe moving the Zaborg and Blade Knights around for triple Thunder Dragon. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that's the deck. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you have any changes, what you would run, and you guys have a great day. Bye.